I would like to thank all of you who've participated in this very powerful day of testimony at the reproductive justice hearing, Locked Out and Silenced. It has been a very powerful day thinking about reclaiming women's reproductive and health care rights. So we started the day intoning, thinking about reflecting on Dr. King and his monumental voice, as he said in 1966, nearly 50 years ago, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhumane. We've spent the day hearing about such shocking treatment of women throughout our country. We've spent the day hearing about incredibly inhumane treatment of women throughout the day and girls. Some of that has been unshackling, but it's not been just that. It's been women turned away by medical providers when they needed most their care after rape. It's been women turned away from pharmacists when they've needed to receive reproductive health care. We've heard about threats against doctors and doctors feeling the threat for their patients' lives because there are guns at home, and that in some states there are laws being proposed where doctors are supposed to be gagged from even asking whether or not a gun is in the house, even in circumstances where they have patients who've experienced extreme domestic violence. We've heard from Sue Ellen Allen, a person who outs herself as a former inmate, who says how she has not been allowed to be at the table and what a profound day it was for her today to finally be at the table and to tell us about the experiences that she had with breast cancer behind bars, but even more profoundly and painfully, what she observed of other women behind bars with her, including her 25-year-old cellmate, Gina, who died of undiagnosed leukemia, who was denied medical care and services, and who, when she finally received care, lapsed into a coma and died 3 days later. It's been an incredibly powerful day when we've heard from a medical administrator who had to stand in place of the providers at the hospital in which she works because they're afraid to be on camera because they fear being shot at their homes or their children being harmed. And it's even more frightening because it's realistic. That's what makes it so scary, that it's not far-fetched because we've lived with that reality in our country. I would like to conclude today's hearing thinking again about Dr. King because there was a raw honesty to his concerns. He noted 50 years ago, and how he prophesied this was so amazing. He noted that there was a kinship between the fight for women's reproductive rights and also the fight for civil rights, because both deal with, in his words, the horrifying conditions of ghetto life. He noted that those who fight for the concerns of the poorest women know all too well, and I quote, that all of society is poisoned by cancerous slums. He remarked that there is a higher law to preserve human life under humane conditions. The results of ignoring this, he surmised, led to high rates of illegitimacy and fragile family relationships. He said, for African Americans, therefore, intelligent guides of family planning are a profoundly important ingredient in their quest for security and decent life. There are mountainous obstacles still separating blacks from a normal existence, he said in 1966, yet one element in stabilizing their lives would be an understanding of and easy access to the means to develop a family related in size to their communities, their environments, and to their income potential that they can command. That's 1966 that Dr. King intoned that. Now, he said, and I conclude with his remarks, that it's not to suggest that for African Americans that all of their problems will be solved through family planning clinics, and he specifically mentioned Planned Parenthood. But he said that their problems are far more complex, encompassing economic security, education, freedom from discrimination, decent housing, and access to culture. Yet, he said, if family planning is sensible, it can facilitate or at least not be an obstacle to the solution for the many profound problems that plague them. He concluded that when African Americans have been able to ascend economically, statistics reveal that they plan their families with even greater care than whites do. It's been a very powerful day of testimony here, and it's been a day that I think will linger in the hearts and minds of those who've not only been in the room, but those that we will reach throughout this country and throughout the world. I'd like to thank you all for participating, and I'd like to thank Judge Alexander, Judge Riddle, Dr. Patricia Jones-Blessman, and Professor Ahmad for being with us today. And this concludes our hearing.